Hi, welcome to the Sankofa Pan-African series. Please subscribe if you've not yet done so. It's the only way you can help sustain us. So please subscribe, press the subscribe button, share our videos, and then give us a thumbs up if you like our videos. Have you heard of Yazi Academy? Well, you'll get a chance to meet one of the brains behind this awesome innovation. Rama specializes in IT partner enablement, as well as a go-to-market strategies. He has over 10 years of experience in program management and enterprise tech sales. Rama has been doing some, like I said before, Rama has been doing some really exciting work in a number of African countries. And he will be telling us about these and his other plans for the near future. So please join me in welcoming to Sankofa Pan-African series, Rama Zuma Letho. Welcome, Rama. Yes, Rama, please, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
So my name is Rama Zomalito, and I was born in West Africa, Benin, Republic of Benin. It's a little country in next to Nigeria, and I really enjoy my time there. I left there when I was very young, right, and spent a bit of time in France, and then moved to the United States. My mother was a diplomat. And because she was a diplomat, she was afforded the opportunity to go elsewhere, right? And through that, I was able to go else. I was able to come to the U.S. I did my my high school in a school called Lyceum Kennedy, which is a French school. It's a French and Japanese school. So very early on, I started brushing up with the idea of a different culture. Right. So because I was used to the French culture and I was used to the African culture, I wasn't used to the American culture nor the Japanese one. But immediately I started brushing with it when I went to that school. Then from there, I did my undergrad at a school called New York Institute of Technology, NYIT, which is a branch of NYU, but really on its own. Right. I gathered I received my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And then from that point on, I went on to work, right? Immediately, I got a job at BlackBerry. And it was at BlackBerry that I learned for passion for study, right? For learning, the idea of being able to impart knowledge onto somebody else. I really learned that I had a passion for that because I was provided the opportunity to own the New York market. And the New York market, at the time of BlackBerry, we had to show people what it meant to have email on the mobile device. Right. So I would think about these interesting ways of showing people how important it is for you to get that message right this moment rather than tomorrow. And in New York, it's interesting because when you think about the stock exchange being in New York at the time, it was a very, very beautiful story to tell where I can tell someone that was looking for information around their stock to be able to get it right away on their Palm Pilot in their phone. Right. And it was a compelling story to tell because I had to figure out all these interesting way of doing it. But when I told it to someone, it was interesting to them as well. So that's my origin. Then my career dragged me into, after BlackBerry, to Google, where I was part of a team of Google Education, where we launched the Google Classroom, and we launched a number of other applications that really helped move a digital education forward. And there again, I learned how to motivate myself and how to bring about a product to the market. After that, just recently, I made a change from Google to Amazon, right? So I'm currently at Amazon, AWS, it's called Amazon Web Services. And as the saying goes, Amazon owns about 70% of the internet. So we build most of the things that are on there. So it's interesting to be part of that dynamic now and to see how a startup goes from the startup stage to becoming an entire company that has all the guardrails of a real field company. So it's interesting to see that because Google remains very much in that startup phase where, it has not grown up to be a full a full set company with the guardrails yet, and Amazon has done that successfully. So I wanted to learn that, which is why I made the change. So my career has been very intentional and very, very purposeful.
Awesome. And I guess it has in some way influenced the journey you're on,
Yes,
working in Africa. Tell us how that started. You know,
absolutely,
started
absolutely,
working, with young people in Africa. How did that come about? I mean, you could have
absolutely.
stayed comfortably earning your mega box in Amazon, Google, and so on, but you have an interest in working with young people in Africa. How did that journey begin?
Absolutely. So initially, and you are right, my journey, my employment journey and my work journey, uh, all were all influenced where I am today, and also influenced my journey in Africa itself. In about 5 years ago, I went to Africa. Actually, no, the story goes back a bit further. About 10 years ago, I went to Africa, and I had a cousin of mine
You went to
who
Benin, Republic of Benin in Africa.
I went to Benin, Republic of
Okay.
Benin in Africa, and I had a cousin of mine who just completed his bachelor's in computer science, and he asked me before I left, before I got there, to bring him a computer. And of course, I brought him a computer. And when I put the computer in front of him, he just didn't know how to use it. He
Mhm.
had no idea how to utilize the device in front of him. And this is a person who just graduated with a bachelor's in computer science. So I was mesmerized, and then I asked myself, well, how is that possible that you have a computer degree and you don't know what to do with this marvel of a machine?
Mhm.
And his answer was very simple. The only thing that I've ever touched that was tangible was the floppy disk. At
Hmm.
one point, they had us learn all about a floppy disk, and they gave us a floppy disk. Meanwhile, the floppy disk was already obsolete at the time. It
Hmm.
was no longer technology that we reviewed. No one uses it anymore. So I was intrigued by that, and fast forward 5 years from that point on, when I studied at Google, I started understanding that there was while digital learning was evolving, Africa was very stagnant, right? A number of schools in Africa were not keeping up with the times. And when you think about the fact that in about 5 to 10 years, our kids will have to compete on a global scale because we are forming a global economy, we're creating global citizens. That really scared me, right? The idea that a kid that never touched a computer would be asked to compete with a kid that's been using it since they opened their eyes. And that's exactly what we are faced with. It's a reality that Africa faces every day, right? We are competing on a global scale with folks that have had an advantage that you can't fathom. They built it, they own it, they wrote the book on it, and we have to sort of be part of that world. So how do we make sure that our kids who are not part of this world today get a glimpse of that world, but not only get a glimpse of that world, but can play at the same level? Because if we don't compete at that level with them, we lose the continent and we lose ourselves. We cannot afford that. It's a fight that we cannot afford. So that's where comes my passion. I involved myself into that, and I wanted to start solving for that. So initially, I started with very little bit of ideas here and there, and then we started growing.
Okay, we'll still come to those specific things you've been doing, but
Absolutely.
let's talk generally about education in Africa. What is wrong
Yes.
with education in Africa today?
Absolutely. There's
As
quite a few things.
yes.
Yes, there's quite a few things wrong with education in Africa today. So I'm going to talk from my perspective. From my perspective and from what I've noticed while working on the continent. And I'm going to preface this by saying I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, this is what's wrong with Africa." When people say that, I always shut my brain, and I'm going to tell you why. Because everyone that says this is what's wrong with Africa, that means they don't understand that there's a lot of things wrong with Africa, just like there's a lot of things wrong with everywhere else, right? It's just we are human. There's a lot of problems that we have to deal with, and the idea is to solve for those problems as we grow, as we evolve. So Africa has problems, but not any different than anywhere else. We have some problem in education. Now, the problems that we have in Africa are problems that we've inherited and problems that we've created over time as well. So initially, when we were conquered and they brought education to us, they also brought a curriculum along with that. Because we, as Africans, we never wrote down our history. We never We passed it along from one generation to the next, right? We never took the time to write how do we teach these things to the next generation. It didn't mean that we didn't teach, because Africa always had in it a way to teach. We had griots that would teach and impart knowledge from one generation to the next, but we
Formal
didn't do it
education, informal
exactly
education.
in formal education. And we still do that till
Yeah,
today. But they did it formally. And because of that, they had a way, a platform that they can give to us. And we accepted that. But from the moment we accepted that, we have not evolved those curriculum. In many ways, we are still using those curriculum that came from people that colonized us and had a specific agenda for us.
which was
And
not
we didn't,
which was not to make us prosper or
absolutely not.
flourish or
Nope, it
think.
wasn't. No, it was not designed for that. It was designed to make us subservient people that would actually accept what is put in front of us. And we
Yes.
still continue to think that way, right? We still a lot of Africans today still continue to think in a way that when they see a certain type of people, they have to bow, they have to respect, they have to do this. Meanwhile, we have evolved as a culture, as a people, and we have to keep up with the time. So that curriculum is wrong for us. First of all, we need to think about how do we improve that. The other problem with education, and this is a global problem, is that in education itself, education academia has not evolved to keep up with the times. Right? We see it in America today, where we recently just had a president who started who won an election on the fact that he wanted to bring back coal jobs, right? Coal jobs back to Americans. The problem is coal jobs can never come back. And he lied to his constitution that they were going to come back because that's what they want to come back. But coal job cannot come back because it is efficiently easier for a machine to produce coal than it is for a human being to go and die in a coal mine. We can machines are taking over roles that we previously used to do, and it's only an evolutionary tale, right? It's an evolutionary tale that's only unfolding itself, and we have to embrace that evolutionary tale, and we have to go along with the time. So academia needs to keep up with the time, and it has not done so. Right? So we need to think about how do we evolve academia itself, not just in Africa, not just globally, but for everyone, right? So that's a problem in itself that we have to solve. Then we need to think about in Africa, Africa spends about 4 to 6% of their GDP. African countries spend about 4 to 6% of their GDPs on education, just like everywhere else. But as much as we spend on education, we are still pushing people towards the field that are not needed. And I can send you a graph that actually shows it from the World Bank. There was a study that shows that most African countries are still enable people towards the vocational studies, the studies of politics and things of the sort. Meanwhile, we need to focus more on the sciences and the social sciences, right? Because we have those jobs readily available on the continent. So how do we enable our kids to start taking up these type of learnings that are going to be beneficial for them and beneficial for them on the long run? So those are the problems that we are faced with on a macro scale.
So, in a nutshell, what solutions should we be focusing on?
So several solutions are important immediately. Immediately, we got to start enabling more STEM learning, right? Immediately. I will urge every school, if you don't have a STEM program currently, create one. If you don't know how to create one, reach out to us. We'll help you create one. There's a bunch of it off the shelf that we can give you that you don't have to pay a dime for,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Enable those. Enable the kids to stop playing and then hear the kids out, because they will tell you the things that they're learning online that is not readily available in their school. Hear them out. The kids know what is moving and what is not moving. Hear them out. I had a meeting yesterday with a company called Summers. And basically it's owned by a gentleman by the name of Willem, right? In Norway. And Willem, along with his spouse, who's Kenyan, have been trying to change education in Africa in some ways. And what they're doing in Norway is very interesting. They will create all of these experimental ways for kids to learn, and they'll bring kids to
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
experiential way
Okay.
for kids to learn. And for example, one of the ways they did is they created an environment where kids feel like they're going to Mars. It's like a spaceship, and kids feel like they're going to Mars, and they'll put them in the fact accomplished, and the kids would actually move buttons to feel like they're going to
Simulation.
Mars. Stimulations.
Going to Mars.
So exactly, and the prime minister embraces this entirely, but they do this systematically because they want the kids to be part of the interaction and to give feedback as to how the curriculum will be informed in the longer run. So bring the kids to the table. The kids know what they want. Bring them to the table. That's another thing that we can do immediately. The third thing that we can do immediately is that we need to start thinking about every educator in Africa. I would challenge to think about this. Start asking yourself what kind of global citizen we are trying to create. We don't ask that question to ourselves. We just take a curriculum and we just put a curriculum in front of the kids and we tell them go and pass exams. Yeah. Exams don't create global citizens. No. We need to think ourselves about what type of global citizens we are trying to create. What type of Nigerian citizen I'm trying to create? What type of Ghanaian citizen I'm trying to create, and then what type of African citizen I'm trying to create, and what type of global citizen I'm trying to create. And from that, we need to work backward and implementing solutions that will help us build those citizenry. So that's exactly, those are things we can do immediately, and any educator around the globe can take on themselves.
So yeah, I totally agree, because like I told you before the interview started, I actually run 2 schools in Lagos, Nigeria. And one of the things we try to do, which we recognize as being very important, is getting the children from a very early age to see themselves not just as individuals, but as committed, responsible citizens, even of their classroom, of the school, of the community in which they live. And our pedagogy is pinned on a responsive classroom approach. And we even have a system where we call Integrity is Key Initiative. And the idea is to make every child responsible for the success of their class. So I don't care if you're the most brilliant child, in that class. If you are the most brilliant child in that class and so many of your classmates are struggling, you're a failure.
You definitely are.
Your success should be seen as a group. So you must also, even from early childhood, start thinking of ways in which to improve, whatever community you find yourselves in. And you would be amazed at how easy it is to get children to start thinking about themselves as part of a, community for which they are responsible. It's amazing. Kids have such capacity, to imbibe those kind of positive qualities very early in life. And once they get it early in life,
that's it. It stays with them forever.
It stays with them forever. So I totally agree.
And you said something that was so true. If you think about it, kids naturally, as human beings, those are things that we naturally are, right? It's who we are. We want to be social animals. We want to be people that help one another. That's who we are naturally. So it's easier for us to do those things. But we are taught usually to do the other way. And because we are taught that, we go the other way.
Yes.
So it's just a natural fit. It's a natural fit for us.
It is. And for teachers who don't realize, that their job is not to go into class and just pump information into kids, but to raise kids who are self-directed and motivated to do certain things. It actually makes the teacher's work easier. Blended learning, for instance, works well when children see themselves as being this responsible part of this small, minuscule society called their classroom.
Absolutely.
Because, so I'm very fast at understanding this concept that teacher has taught us in math. Yes, I've understood it, but I also need to help teacher or help my classmate to get there. And in a blended learning system, you can actually have a situation also where the teacher can then, once they've taught a particular principle, figure out, okay, if 25% of the students have got it, how do I get the remaining 75% to get it? You can use those 25% to help with this with the 75. The 25% are not only helping the others, but they are also reimbursing,
I agree.
Yeah, reinforcing what you have taught them when they're trying to impart it on others, and they're also helping others to learn. There are very innovative things, that can be done in the classroom that can take us away from this colonial system of learning, where the teacher
Absolutely.
is this godlike figure who has all the
Exactly.
information, has all the
Yes.
answers, and gives it to us. We just carry it in our head and regurgitate it in an exam. It hasn't worked.
Exactly.
And
It hasn't.
for
It
us.
hasn't. And the way and if we continue teaching that way, we'll continue to create people that are followers, right?
Yes.
And right now, Africa needs more
Yes.
leaders than it needs followers.
Yes.
We need leaders that are going to get up, that are going to roll up their sleeve, and that are going to do the work that needs to be done.
Yes.
And the only way that we get that, I love the idea of the diaspora helping, and I've always said this: diaspora is going to be there to help. But Africans have to be the one to do the brunt of the work. So we have to enable those kids. We have to enable them to do it themselves. And we cannot continue to follow shapes. We have to follow leaders.
This discussion will be continued in the next episode.